and gentlemen, and welcome to a new episode with Mark Tech. I was on a small hiatus, but nothing too egregious. I guess tech news was kind of boring, right? Nothing interesting was happening. So much else was happening in terms of politics. And now, boom! This is what you get now. If you're basically a pro Windows user in a very pro environment, airpods, airports, like giant media companies, news stations, hospitals, and you're using a little piece of software for your security called CloudStrike, not to be confused with Cloud Strife, one of the best Final Fantasy protagonists there is. No, you are looking at this. Of course, nothing too new here. Like the blue screen of death has been known and feared in the Windows community and across the world for years. It's not a great compliment for engineers whenever it pops up. And yes, it seems like Windows didn't load correctly for a lot of people all across the world, across super duper important institutions, and it's exclusively a Windows thing. Now, it's not Microsoft's fault directly. Indirectly, we can have a discussion about that, but you can definitely not get worse PR in a way than having like giant media rooms and stuff like that, where every single screen shows this, the blue screen of death, or BSOD for short. Now, what exactly are we talking about? Well, shout out goes out to Tom Warren, who actually did a pretty good write-up about this from The Verge. He's pretty close to Microsoft, so expect this article to be pretty positively neutral. But I did want to present this in a somewhat fair light, and I didn't want to shit on Microsoft and Windows right away. Of course, I did have my fun with the intro a little bit, but I do want to get into some of the details about it. It's mostly in the process of getting fixed. The issue is that right now, so many computers, so many PCs are afflicted by it that it makes it very, very unlikely that it will be fixed very, very quickly, even if the actual process of fixing an individual PC is pretty quick. But once you start interacting with like server infrastructure, and God forbid if you like the weekend starts now, if you don't have the employees that are actually able to work with that, that's going to be a problem. However, I believe that most important things will be fixed rather quickly. So what exactly is happening? Why is this such a big deal? And also, why is this probably not such a big deal in the long term, right? Well, it's a faulty update from a cybersecurity provider called CrowdStrike, and it's global, right? Basically, everyone who was using CrowdStrike on Windows, be it like a Windows like regular environment or like a Windows Server environment, and you had like the latest version installed, it's like one file basically, then it basically breaks your computer in this way. So at first we talked about like thousands of machines, right? Because obviously all across the world we start our day at different times because of different time zones. So basically this was deployed either sometime yesterday or sometime overnight. Also, again, depending on your time zone. And basically the first guys to go online and try out their computers, or for example, media stations that are online 24 hours a day, or airpods that operate, airpods, I say it again, airports that of course all operate 24 hours a day. They basically, like the second it got through like the latest update, so to speak, they got that issue, right? So at first we started seeing like people affected in Australia, then across most of the world, finally reaching like the United United States as well. It has, of course, wreaked havoc across like everything from banks, airlines, TV broadcasters, supermarkets, and basically, of course, every business that would be using Windows with combined with CloudStrike. What is funny here, at least in my opinion, is of course that it showed, of course, in this very Windows way, right? It showed it's a blue screen of death. It didn't give you like a specific error message. It didn't show you that like, oh, there's like a program that wants to have weird access, or like there was no forced reboot from the computer in the sense that like, oh, maybe it would do something automatically to fix it. No, it basically showed you, oh, your computer is basically toast. Windows didn't load correctly. And we have one of our MarkTech Pro Max subscribers joining the chat. Hello, Angelica. Always welcome, of course, here in the chat. You are on the train, so I fully understand if the connection is not too stable. We've had that on the channel for actually a few times now, where people in the chat were like either on the train or in some kind of other public transport, and they were afraid about their stability. Don't worry. Of course, now that you're here, I want to give out a brief shout out to any kind of method you can do to support this channel. Of course, there is just subscribing to the channel, sharing out the video, liking it, commenting on it. As I always say, I enjoy me a lively live chat. And beyond that, of course, you can do direct support like channel memberships. Shout out go out to Angelica and Max Maximus, who are MarkTech Pro Max channel members. And you can follow me on Patreon. Of course, shout out goes to Louis Gold, who is a MarkTech Pro Max tier supporter over there. And of course, you can leave super chats or super stickers right while I'm live. I will likely read your message anyway, but if you can basically stomach a small donation, that of course is very much appreciated. So of course, as I said, basically CloudStrike is very much to blame. Now we can have a philosophical discussion about, is Windows by default so unsafe and so like patched together at this point because it tries to like retain a decent level of backwards compatibility and like ease of like for developers to code, even if you come from like an older operating system, right? Basically, Windows is a continuity at this point. We might be talking about Windows 11 being on the market. We might talk about Windows 10 still having like double the install base of Windows 11, but fundamentally, Microsoft basically wants you to feel at home, even if like the last OS you used was maybe in a way Windows XP or something like that, right? And that actually permeates Windows itself, where in some parts of the operating system you will find like ancient UI elements and icons from like Windows 98 because Microsoft was never bothered to like update those. And you can basically argue that maybe their feeling towards security is a little bit like this, and this is why companies like CloudStrike then basically have a giant business selling people on security options. Now, of course, security software exists for Mac OS, it exists for Linux, it exists for all server infrastructure, but it seems like Windows really struggling more than the rest. Now, Apple has mostly given up on cloud. I don't know if their own cloud systems that they're now building for Apple Intelligence are based for like on Mac OS actually, but most cloud in the world is basically either Linux or Windows to a degree. Basically, the larger and more ambitious you get, the more likely it is that it's Linux, because simply like a lot of the best experts in that area actually prefer it, and I guess I understand why. I guess Unix systems are still kind of superior in many ways to Windows. But I do not want to be an asshole here. This is fundamentally not Microsoft's fault directly. This is not an update of Windows that crashed CloudStrike. It's not some kind of hidden security patch from Microsoft that crashed all of Windows. It's a very specific piece of security software that basically got a new file in it or an updated file, and that didn't work together too well with Windows. I've heard some experts say that this kind of like kernel panic is more likely to happen in Windows because Apple has like implemented different solutions where basically if something breaks, it doesn't break on quite the same fundamental level. But I'm not an expert in that regard. I don't want to like blindly say that this is the fact. I'll just present it to you. You can do with it as you want. The one thing that I definitely can tell you is that I've never heard people talk about it in reverse. I've never heard any expert say Windows is fundamentally more secure than Linux or Mac OS, or of course iOS, or even to a degree maybe Android. So yeah, this definitely does have something to do with Microsoft as well. Gogs are asking, how am I still recording? What do you mean? Of course I'm still recording. Never mind. Okay. Did you mix me up or something like that? Um, so the Federal Aviation Administration says it's assisting airlines like Delta, United, American Airlines. So basically, again, as I've said time and time again, this is a worldwide issue across many, many big companies. For me personally, now granted, I wasn't planning to take a plane today, but the Berlin airport was also warning people of delays. A lot of like giant media stations were showing like the blue screen of death and sending out messages to apologize. If you are somebody who doesn't have a smartphone or something like that in those institutions, you're kind of effed because obviously if you were completely reliant on the PC infrastructure, yeah, that's kind of awesome to be honest. Again, it is getting fixed. It seems like it didn't cause any plane crash or something like that. That's why I'm laughing. If something truly serious comes out of it, then of course it becomes less of a laughing matter. This is a little bit like Y2K, right? Like the fear that once we hit a new millennia from 1999 to 2000, that basically with how the clocks inside computers work, that they would completely crash because they have no understanding of switching to a new millennia, right? That of course turned out to be complete horseshit. And it's funny that now, almost 25 years later, we are hitting issues where we actually do experience global outages on this kind of scale, and especially in such kind of important environments. Now, as I said, this is for people who use this security software. If you're a regular user, you're very, very unlikely to have this, even if you have like a business issued laptop or something like that. However, if you do experience issues, or if you are a giant media conglomerate that is watching me for some reason for tips to deal with it, here is how you actually deal with it. Now, again, you can very, very easily look that up, but basically you boot Windows into safe mode or the Windows recovery environment. You navigate to C/Windows/System32 drivers CrowdStrike directory, and then you find a file called C/0000291.sys and delete it, and then you boot the system again. So basically, this file is entirely to blame. And if you are the engineer that basically gave the go-ahead on this little file being pushed out in this way, you can now put in your resume that your work truly had a global impact. Kind of like if you're the bat that created COVID, you could say that your existence had like a global impact, I guess. So again, it is fixable, and as you can see from the steps, which aren't many, it isn't too difficult to fix. The way it becomes a problem is supposedly like if you count like every like industrial device like PC that potentially runs CrowdStrike. Oh, it's CrowdStrike? I thought it's CloudStrike. Am I stupid? I wrote that while I was at the gym, so maybe that's how I got it wrong. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll correct it right after I go offline. That's embarrassing. That will definitely be worth a correction here from me. Or you know what? Gonna do it right now. You can let me know in the chat meanwhile what you think, what you agree with, what you disagree with. Once again, a small encouragement by me for you guys to like basically do the likes, do the subscriptions, all the YouTube jazz as I call it, and of course tell me if you are in any way impacted by this, because of course that's a big thing. Crowd strike and saving it. Yeah, should work. And now I think I can make myself small again. Hello. Yeah, so I guess I was really, really tired today. I'm still super tired, so I apologize for I guess for the fake news. So if you hear me again in the beginning of the video talking about Cloud Strike, yeah, that's bullshit. It's crowds. um, yeah, but basically, it's an easy fix. The problem here, of course, is that it does impact so many devices that you will need a ton of engineers fixing it. I assume that it will be such a big problem that many companies just ask regular employees to like go to individual computers and fix them, basically giving them these kinds of instructions and saying like, do your best, brother, or something like that. Let's see what comes out of that. Of course, once you go into like recovery mode, there are some things you can screw up, but anybody like reasonably intelligent, but then again, this is coming from the guy who called this Cloud Strike, should be able to deal with that. And there's also the option to wait for a CrowdStrike to basically issue a fix themselves. But I don't know if it actually works, right, in that way, because obviously the system right now is kind of crashed. So whether it's actually capable of receiving that kind of fix automatically will probably not even be like a universal thing. It might be that some systems are able to, some are not. So I think for now that seems to be the best option. But of course, if you are afflicted by it, please look for any kind of like new instructions by the company, by Microsoft itself. This is taken very seriously right now, so I highly, highly encourage you to look at the very latest information about that. Now, this is basically it. Again, I didn't want to make this too long in terms of like me just shitting on Microsoft or CrowdStrike, as we know, but it is what it is. It's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate issue. It seems to thus far have not caused too many big like human problems. It definitely is a problem economically and just logistically, but let's hope that everyone stays safe. Let's hope it gets fixed relatively quickly, and let's move on from that as a society. Beyond that, of course, this is an Apple focused channel, so I could easily use this just to shit on Microsoft. That is not my goal here, because I just want to inform you guys. As you have seen in the past, I've also talked about like iPhone issues. I've talked about iPhone overheating. That's a different issue than when it was like having charging problems where it would like turn off during charging and then you wouldn't be able, and then it wouldn't charge during that time. So I've informed you guys on issues across the board for all operating systems, all kinds of devices. So this is not designed to be just a diss against Microsoft. This is me legitimately being like, oh, this is an issue we should be taking seriously. Guys, I want to ask you, do you have issues with my video stream? Basically with like how smooth my face looks on stream, because to me it looks kind of shaky, but not just in a 30 FPS way, because obviously I stream at 30 FPS. Do you have issues? Please let me know. It might be like an encoder issue, like OBS like installed an update recently, so maybe it broke something. Or maybe it's just the stream that I'm seeing on my iPad. I'm not actually sure. Because I did want to actually have a second part of this video that for me was pretty important, and that is that MKBHD finally reviewed the Galaxy Ring. Now, it's not a long video, and I do not want to make this video too long myself. It just so happens, though, that that is something that interests me, my community, and I did want to react to it. So, of course, please let me know if everything still works for you, audio, video quality. Is the stream actually like unstable for you? Is it just my face? Is it everything on the screen? Let me know. Otherwise, I'll fix it or not. Might be that I'm experiencing something with CrowdStrike. Who knows? So let's start. Let's see what we got from MKBHD and the Galaxy Ring. Again, I do not want to spend too much time on the issue. It seems to have like a very clear-cut solution. It's also something that definitely is fixable in a way, and it's definitely more like an enterprise thing rather than a private user thing. So I just wanted to inform you and move on from there. So let's start the MKBHD video and let's see what he thinks about the Galaxy Ring.
I have learned a lot about rings and about myself in the past week of testing the Galaxy Ring. It's been an adventure. I've gotten resized. I've had some existential thoughts. And at the end, I have maybe a hot take on smart rings versus smartwatches. So buckle up.
Yeah, basically my thought right now is I don't know how feasible it is to have devices without any way of like interacting with them directly in a way. Like, I guess you could install like a voice assistant into this, but then you really hit like software issues, even just speakers and microphones constantly running. Like, I guess like headphones are like the one thing that you kind of always have on you or in you in a way. That doesn't let you like directly control everything, right? You cannot like magically look up. Like, I guess you can have a front screen, but most headphones definitely don't. And but you can like pause, play, you can invoke a voice assistant on them. And of course, just the fact that they're like single purpose for listening to audio, in my opinion, that makes them a lot more likely that you would want to control what's happening on them, like through your smartphone, through your TV, through your tablet, whatever you actually connect with them. When it comes to a fitness tracker, like the fact that I always have to go to my smartphone to then look up the data that it's provided here, like for example on an Apple Watch, right? Like irregular heart rhythm or something like that, or like this stuff will show up on your actual screen. It's different from just forcing you to, oh, look this up on your smartphone, this is the data. And even a lot of the cheaper fitness trackers have like very tall screens but actually very small screen area, they still allow you to interact with them, at least swipe through the data, maybe click something. And of course on something as big like a Galaxy Watch Ultra or an Apple Watch Ultra, that's what I'm wearing, like controlling music, responding to messages, even with the keyboard, that all becomes actually usable. It's not as enjoyable as on the smartphone, but it's workable, and it's something that you already wear on you. With a ring, the difference is a lot of people at least used to wear watches, right? Now a lot more people wear watches again because we turned like analog watches to electronic ones or smart watches. Rings, to be honest, most people I know who wear rings just have wedding rings or like engagement rings. Like, I don't know pretty much anyone who like changes a ton of ring. Like, yes, I know a couple of women who like of course wear rings purely aesthetically, but usually they try to keep those like as small as possible, right? It's just a piece of gold, a little bit of jewelry for a little blink, right? Actually having like a ring that gives like the impression of like a flattish wedding ring, right? Because that's kind of the aesthetic, like the Lord of the Rings ring. I don't ever see that really these days. So again, fashion is culture changes, right? So I'm absolutely willing to accept that if culture changes to accommodate like smart rings, then rings could become more popular. But I would say that in generally watches were much more like appreciated than rings as like a piece of accessory, especially across both genders, right? Like especially for men.
Smart rings. They've been around for a while now. The Aura Ring came out like 10 years ago as a Kickstarter, but the main point of these, the whole advantage of it, is you can wear it 24/7. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It has a 7-day
And you can see the way he wears it, right?
long battery
On like
life.
his index
whole idea-
finger down below, that's already far less aesthetically pleasing than the way you wear like a wedding ring.
Is you just walk around like living life with a ring on like normal. Living, eating, sleeping, showering, swimming, whatever, just with a ring. And that's honestly the most impressive thing about the smart ring to me, is the fact that it gets so close in dimensions to like a regular ring that some people would wear. Now keep in mind, if you have smaller hands, it'll look bigger, but it's 2.6 millimeters thick, so it kind of bulges around your finger. But aside from that, it just looks normal. It's not a tiny ring, but I mean, it's still, I'm impressed by how much tech they shove into this.
I agree. The health sensors are mostly basic, but it's definitely impressive that we can pull this off. But again, no speakers, no display of any kind, no microphones. It's definitely a different thing than a smartwatch.
Tiny little frame. And by tech, I mean a small battery and a couple pretty basic sensors. But when you put it all together, you get this all-day activity tracker that you can kind of just put on at the beginning of the week and then forget about it, not worry about the battery life, just wear it every day, every night, and then just get a ton of valuable insight on your health and sleep.
I also know that like Marquez likes the matte black aesthetic, but I kind of have to say it just looks boring. The issue is if something is so small and it has like a super neutral look to it, then it starts almost looking like a mistake, I guess. Right? Because if a watch looks somewhat neutral, it's big enough, right? You could say like, oh, I prefer to be minimalist, right? But with a ring, something so small relatively, it just feels like having a super black, like slightly gray matte aesthetic, especially like it's not like polished. What would it even be like? I guess you can make platinum kind of like that. I just don't like the look. I guess I mean with a golden look it would still look decent. This is titanium, right? That's what Samsung said. So I guess everyone would look kind of matte-ish. But yeah, I'm not a super big fan of this look.
And energy levels. At least that's the ideal
And
use case.
I enjoy the way he like pushes like his cross-platform status, like showing with a Mac, obviously the Galaxy S24 Ultra, and Apple Watch Ultra. It's a very smart, like you guys have to understand, Marquez is incredibly smart, incredibly media savvy. Those little things that he shows, they do have purpose. I really admire him. He's not my favorite content creator because he is a mass market tech reviewer, right? And I'm kind of like in the enthusiast space. I prefer like more details, more nerdy stuff. But that's not his fault, right? He has his audience. He plays to them. That's incredibly smart. I play to my audience whenever I talk a lot about like Apple processors and Snapdragon chips and whatever else, because I know that's what my audience likes and that's what I like too, thankfully, because otherwise this would be very, very boring for me. But of course, he's like massively successful with what he does, and you should be paying attention if you ever think of like joining like the media space in like tech related curated ways, you should know that all these little shots, they should still come with a degree of intelligence and consideration. So kudos to Marquez.
Now, I have never worn a ring before, so there's always some layer of like getting used to wearing something on your finger every day. But then on top of that, there are a couple other best practices, like things you should know.
This is why I've said that, like, even women that I know, like, who wear rings for aesthetic purposes, they usually prefer like thin rings, like something that might have a little bit of like a precious stone or something in there, even if it's fake, right? It doesn't have to be ultra premium or whatever to look good. But like, I know he chose matte black, but even if we look at the other colors or whatever, it just becomes a different topic once you consider, oh, this kind of looks like a wedding ring, right? But it's not. So
about wearing this one. So first of all, there is a correct way to wear it. Okay, all the sensors are on the same side of the ring, lined up at the bottom with this little notch. So you're supposed to align all those sensors with the palm side of your hand for the best readings. And then you're supposed to wear it on your index finger for the best results. So apparently not actually on your ring finger. So once you get this right, you should have all the info showing up in
the issue is the index finger is so crucial to what we do, and I don't just mean that. It's I don't know if I ever would want, like, this is why the ring finger is the ring finger. It's not because the index finger wasn't there when we invented wedding rings. It's usually like you want to have as much flexible movement for those fingers, and I don't know. They say it's the best position. I wonder what would happen if you wear it on your actual like ring finger or even like your middle finger. But yeah, I definitely don't like this instruction. Now, when it comes to saying it should be palm side up with the sensors, that makes sense. The skin is thinner and, of course, less impacted by the sun. You can see that very well with Marquez, who is obviously African American. But even for like a Caucasian like me, you can still see the difference between like the back of my hand and like my palm.
Samsung Health app. This is calories burned, steps taken, how many miles you've covered, and it all accumulates it together with this one energy score, which is out of 100. So I was wearing my Apple Watch.
Needs attention. Did it give Marquez, who like plays ultimate frisbee in pro ways, who's like in super good shape, a score of 51? Was it maybe like specific for that day? Like he maybe just got into his car and got to like where he shoots the videos and like basically didn't move that day. But his other health parameters should still be awesome, isn't it? Or did it give him maybe like a bad sleeping like data or whatever? It's weird. Like this is why I hate aggregate shit. And this is why I hate focusing on so much data simultaneously. It's like Dr. House says, it's like every human has one or two anomalies in their bodies, like either they're anatomically or even physiologically. You might have like a parameter that looks very weird, but you feel perfectly fine with it. And that doesn't mean you should pay that much attention to it. I think one good thing that I always recommend people not to pay too much attention to is your sleep, like hard data. Ask yourself, am I actually tired? Am I actually dealing well with my daily tasks? And if you are, then that's fine. And if you have good sleep data, but you actually feel like shit throughout the day, then you might probably want to go to a doctor and ask not just about like your regular like medical parameters, but also your sleep data too. I think once in your life, probably everyone should have like a proper sleep analysis that includes like temperature measurements, the only correct way to measure temperature, by the way, like your proper oxygenation level across your body, not just on one part of your wrist or something like that. But yeah, like I've always always been critical about sleep. By the way, I actually support you keeping on your devices during sleep, just not necessarily for sleep tracking. I support them because those devices obviously have other benefits beyond just sleep tracking, right? They have like ECGs. They can regulate. They can basically look at if your heartbeat is regular. Some can, of course, see like even blood pressure, which I wish Apple would introduce to the Apple Watch over time. And of course, even a feature like fall detection, right? Imagine if you stand up during sleep and then you of course fall, which is actually the most likely time when you're likely to fall as an elderly person. Now you would be happy that you wore your watch or your ring or whatever to bed, because like you most likely didn't stand up, look at you close to you, pick up your watch, put it on, and then went to the bathroom. You most likely just stood up, looked at to the skies, I guess, in a way, like that, and then you went to the bathroom and then you fell. So this is why I'm saying sleep tracking might not be my favorite feature, but when it comes to actually like tracking still like your regular vitals, and of course making sure you don't have a car accident or you fall, all of that stuff to me matters.
Ultra at the same exact time that I was testing the Ring. And so I'm looking at the numbers back and forth, and it seems like the Ring and the watch are way off from each other.
Yeah, so this is one thing that I shared out like yesterday this is a video I did actually pre-watch because it is kind of important to me to know if there's anything interesting here. It's basically 2x off or like 80 to 90% off versus the Apple Watch Ultra. Now, I know the Apple Watch has like a 2 to 5% failure rate or like error rate. I think part of that also has to do that sometimes, especially with super large watches, it's actually hard to like put them on your wrist precisely the way they're supposed to be, right? I know that even from my Apple Watch Ultra, because it's heavy, it kind of almost falls a little bit on my wrist, and then it can track either a little bit too much or a little bit too little, but usually you will be plus minus 5% range, and that's actually where most smartwatches are these days. So to me, the fact that like this is basically 2x off from this, that's kind of bad. Now the calorie count, yes, that is very similar, one might say. However, 140 calories here might actually be a big proportion of all your workout calories, because you obviously have like resting calories that that I believe should be identical, because the calculation is pretty simple. It's basically like your weight, your age, and your how tall you are, and that's and your biological sex, and then it calculates for you like what your resting calories are. So the fact that even the calories are still like off is actually more significant than it looks. And of course, 0 flights of stairs versus 8 flights of stairs. Yeah, that's a shame that this seemingly got it so wrong.
Ring, I'm just going to say it's overcounting a lot of regular activity.
And by the way, it didn't just assume that the Galaxy Watch was wrong here. Again, because I pre-watched it, I know that Marquez didn't just trust the Apple Watch Ultra automatically here, but of course he does have a feeling for how much he himself walks and stuff like that.
It didn't count nearly as many floors climbed for some reason. So
nearly as many or any.
I don't know. There's a big delta between these numbers. And then I also at one point took the Ring off for a while around 10 p.m. one day. More on that later. But it continued to show heart rate ranges all the way, you can see here, until 3 a.m. when I am definitely not wearing it.
It's did it have access to any other data is my question. But yeah, this might be a bug. Again, this is the issue with like Look, everyone who releases a brand new category of device has issues. Like the Apple Watch Series 0 was in many ways crap. It had a very, very slow processor. It couldn't run apps like natively on device. It basically was bad by any like modern technological standard, but it was Apple's first Apple Watch. Now a Galaxy Ring, it stands to reason actually that it might be that the Galaxy Ring is like so advanced in a way and so new that Samsung is struggling with it. But those kinds of mistakes really seem more like it was just rushed. Not that there's just a complexity that needs to be overcome, but like legitimately, like Samsung just didn't care and they just wanted to say, look, we have a $400 watch, we have a $400 ring, and it does need a subscription service. By the way, I have no idea why anyone would ever demand a subscription service these days. Like, I understand having a subscription service that is in addition to your to like your data analysis, maybe like something super special like a personal fitness instructor that contacts you once a week or something and looks at your data or whatever. I don't know who would want that, but like maybe. But yeah, this idea that like you should pay for data that exists on your devices anyway already, that's very weird to me. Especially like the Aura Ring is like $330 or $400. It's like sell it at the freaking profit at that point. Raise the price to $350 and $420 and be done with it. And don't ask people for a stupid subscription service.
Kind of weird. You know, I did that challenge a while ago of walking 1,000 steps in a bunch of smartwatches and with a pedometer, and they were all within a few percent of each other. So I think I lean.
Yeah, basically Apple was a little off here. I actually I never reacted to this or anything like that. I think that predates my channel. Of course, I fully have no problem saying maybe the Apple Watch was just off here. I think that the Apple Watch suffered from
within a few
its
percent
position,
of each other, so
right? If you look at it here, right, it was further off. And it isn't too surprising that the watches that actually perform the best, the Galaxy Watch and the Pixel Watch, are actually the ones that were directly on his wrist. And unironically, he put the heavier watches where they're actually worse off. If you put the heavier watches directly on his wrist and then the lighter watches further away, that the lighter watches wouldn't have suffered from some. Again, this is a theory, and this isn't meant as an excuse. This is just a thought experiment. I think the Apple Watch did just fine anyway, but nor do I think that that will influence anybody's idea. But I believe that you should like restrain yourself to like or limit yourself to 2 watches while doing such an experiment, because the different positioning away from the wrist, that just becomes a different issue. You usually also have like denser hair over here, especially as a man. No, I don't know if he shaves. Kind of looks like that. But yeah, that's just a thought experiment. That's not meant as an excuse for the Apple Watch Ultra having any kind of error rate. I fully admit that it has some error rate. And also a small explainer to the Pixel Watch actually is that the Pixel Watch actually is pretty crazy in the amount of data it captures all the time, right? It basically is in regular mode, or at least it was. I don't know if they updated it. It gets pretty close to how other smartwatches might treat like their dedicated workout modes and how much data is sampled per minute. And this is also why it has pretty terrible battery life despite having such a relatively small screen and stuff like that. So yeah, like if the Pixel Watch is actually accurate, that's very likely because the Apple Watch definitely wasn't like in workout mode.
In a bunch of smartwatches and with a pedometer, and they were all within a few percent of each other. So I think I lean towards trusting the watch over the ring numbers. But that brings me to the importance of sizing, because you only get one size. You don't get to adjust it like you would with a watch, right? So you might have seen this. Right here. This thing is Samsung's ring sizing kit. You can buy this on their site for $10, and then you get a whole bunch of different plastic versions of the ring, and they even have the nubs on the inside for the sensors. So you try a bunch of these on.
I remember when Apple, I think they should still have it, was like for Apple Watch bands, right? And you would basically print that out on paper, cut it out, and see what size it is. Apple definitely wasn't selling you stuff like that. So that's a good thing. I actually commend Samsung for that. And it kind of gives you like a lot of rings to play with.
And you try to figure which one is the most snug but won't fall off, and that'll be the size of the ring that you get. And then you get $10 off the ring itself. So I bring this up because I totally did the size kit thing either with the wrong finger or I did something wrong, because I ended up with a ring size 11, which it was a little too big when I got the actual ring. And so I noticed that because it was kind of loose. It didn't really feel comfortable all the time. And then there would be like gaps in my sleep readings, which probably just meant that it was like pushed off of my finger while I was asleep and it wasn't actually reading anything. So I got a new size. I got the size 10, and then it felt much better. And by the way, it turns out the index finger is a much better place to put like a heart rate monitor and other sorts of vitals sensors than the back of the wrist. This is one of those weird secrets or whatever that nobody really talks about with smartwatches, which is that the back of the wrist is a horrible place to measure.
Like, I mean, the best technical thing would be here, where a ton of blood vessels are and stuff like that. You would actually have the least amount of like even like visual resistance to sending the green light that could that can measure like your blood oxygen level and like just like your blood flow in general, because blood is red and green is the contrast to red. But yeah, of course, the back of the wrist is a very, very bad position for that. The fact that we have even semi-accurate recording or even great recordings from there is pretty incredible, especially stuff now that we have like even features like ECG. That's very impressive to me.
Any of this stuff, but yeah, the ring, that's where you should get that info. Now here's the thing that using this smart ring for a while actually taught me about myself. All of the benefits are still true. Like, it's more wearable than a watch 24/7, definitely.
True.
It's got that.
This is also the issue, though. It kind of comes down to the same question of like with the AI devices, right? Like the standalone products that were built entirely around AI. It's like, sure, they're more compact and easier to wear, and they might even have like different attachment mechanism than your smartphone. But is it actually worth carrying extra over your smartphone? Because you are definitely not fully replacing your smartphone with those devices because they are practical to carry around. And the short answer to that for most people is no. And I think that right now, especially at the price of the ring, right? If the ring was actually like $200, even $200 though, like against fitness trackers that we've had for years, let's say it was $150 or something like that, right? I think it could have a chance. But $400, now I know this is like the premium version. Maybe over time they'll make a cheaper version. But I'm not so sure that that will have any big impact on the smartwatch industry.
A full week
Maybe against like super dumb fitness trackers if it ever gets so cheap, but not in its current state, right?
long battery life. It's legit. You can basically forget you're wearing it after a few days in a row and have lots of ways to wear it out. It's more versatile. You don't have to dress it up or dress it down to match an outfit. It's just a simple concave titanium design that looks good anywhere. There's 3 colors: gold, silver, or matte black. So you already know this matte black one feels...
I would have, like, if I were in MKBHD's position, I would have asked for all 3 colors, so I could at least show them, right? It's not like he keeps them, because that's kind of, I believe, doing it a little bit of a disservice just showing the black.
Feels right at home. I've just discovered that I'm not a big smart ring person myself. That's just what it's come down to. The main thing is the activities that I do that I care about the most I can't have anything on my hands. Like number one, ultimate frisbee, a lot of throwing, a lot of catching, golf, where the ring again just doesn't work, and weight training, a lot of grip stuff. Just can't have a ring on. So for each of
I
those
guess you could still while working with weights, but yeah, like I guess ultimate frisbee isn't like a contact sport in the way that like football is, but a big watch is still a problem, right? Like, especially in anything where you could collide with like another person or you fall to the ground. Like, you could hurt yourself by having a super massive piece of metal and glass on your wrist. So this is why, like on a professional event, you will probably never see any kind of individual wear something like that. Um, as for just your work, like your workouts, yeah, true. But yeah, I also believe that, especially with its position on the index finger, it just kind of becomes a problem because it would feel like it's in the way. Yeah, I only ever wore rings for a very short period of time. I can definitely tell you that just purely theoretically, I wouldn't want to wear them for like sports stuff, but obviously nothing that also involves gloves or anything. Again, if we go back to American football or whatever. But yeah, I fully understand his point. And as I said, he definitely does have a lot of stuff he can talk about, golf, ultimate frisbee, things like that.
major workout activities,
I also, of course, wouldn't wear like, well, I probably wouldn't wear a watch either to like some to like really industrial work. Obviously, like I work at the hospital. Watches are kind of gray zone taboo because you still like transport like potential infections from one place to another. Rings are completely taboo because obviously that's where your fingers are, and nor would you ever want to wear like a medical glove on top of a finger, on top of a finger with a ring. So yeah, I would just say, yeah, it rings really, the fact that you wear wedding rings, that's like a commitment. And usually when you wear like jewelry rings, you kind of know that your work either allows it or there's like zero issues with that. But for like a lot of men, especially with the way like one kind of gets used to how you see your hands and how you use them, I fully understand what Marquez means here.
take the ring off, which
I want to
defeats
take
the
your
purpose
face
of a
off.
fitness tracker that's supposed to know everything about my fitness when it's not tracking the most important workout stuff that I do. Now, I did keep the ring on for some other like lighter plyo workouts, and there is auto work.
Yeah, the issue with that is also like, I wonder how that works though for a lot of stuff, because you can already see, like, as he does some sit-ups or push-ups. Yeah, push-ups. That's sorry. Again, I'm good at English, but English is not my native language. Sometimes I mix shit up. Forgive me. Yeah, push-ups. You can see that the watch would be kind of capable of measuring that, like the movements from the wrist. The ring, would it?
Workout detection, but with
Like,
the
you can see that
lighter
like
workouts, like where you're not moving quick.
there's like some contraction of his fingers, but it's definitely not like a super hardcore thing. And if your heart rate doesn't like spike up too much, then it really becomes a question, how well can it even understand those workouts? Part of the good thing about like having a watch on your wrist, as well, like we've talked about the negatives, but part of the positives is that whenever we actually do something really physically taxing, it's very likely it will involve something involving our wrist, right? And even if we walk, of course, this is where the gyro comes in and stuff like that. So even if the wrist itself isn't swinging too much, your arm is. And of course, even like lifting weights, of course, is like an issue here because, like, yeah, there you have like the gyro impact here and stuff like that. Granted, you wouldn't be able to measure what exact weights you're lifting up and down, but it still gets a feeling for what you're doing. With a ring, you would now have to make sure that it has like the best gyroscope ever, and that might even be impacted a lot by accelerometers and things like that. And that would be also impacted by the size, because you cannot infinitely shrink down all those sensors. So I don't know. It just feels like it's biting a little bit more often it can chew. It just feels like the tech isn't ready, and I'm not even sure that that's what I always say about like smartphones versus like laptops, for example, right? Smartphones, for example, an iPhone 15 Pro Max with its 8 gigs of RAM, an A17 Pro chip, it's way faster than like many laptops from a decade ago. And you could give it like more RAM so it competes in that regard too. It has 1 terabyte of storage. Theoretically, you could give it more, right? But there are limits to how large the battery can be inside. And of course, with a screen relatively limited in size, even if you make it a foldable that you unfold, you're still not in the realm of even like a 10-inch freaking netbook with a dedicated keyboard attached to it. So you still want separate devices to do separate things. The issue is that the ring does really nothing better than a watch except for being more portable, but you're giving up stuff for it to be more portable, right? So would you ever consider wearing both? I would say most likely not, unless maybe the ring is like $100, right? And it just is a completely auxiliary, like secondary thing to the watch. But as long as it's in many cases even like more expensive than many smartwatches out there, I just don't see the reason for this existing. Certainly not like the Aura watch that like demands you have like a subscription service for it.
Quickly and your heart rate doesn't spike up super high, then the auto workout detection didn't work super well, at least for me. And same thing for sleep tracking. I had a couple of days on here where it thinks I actually didn't go to sleep until midnight, when I was actually in bed earlier than that with the ring on. It just didn't know.
Well, for me, that wouldn't be that wouldn't be two different facts. For me, it would be, oh, I went to bed at 10 or 11, but I only fell asleep at midnight. That would be actually a pretty good day for me. I usually don't fall asleep before 1 a.m.
I can see the exact numbers because the smart mattress cover, the 8 Sleep, did pick up everything, which is a great segue because this video is sponsored by 8 Sleep. So I was recently telling you guys how the 2 times better.
I'm not skipping the watch, the ad, guys, the ad watch, guys, because I actually want to say something about that mattress.
Performance was helping me actually sleep better and getting more 100 sleep scores, which it still is, but also the autopilot intelligence automatically adjusts the temperature throughout the night and the elevation on the Ultra.
The reason why, for one, I do think it's expensive, and maybe it's too expensive for most. I don't have a mattress like that, but I do have to say, if you actually worry about your sleep from like a sleep hygiene perspective, sleep hygiene doesn't mean that you have to be clean while going to bed. Sleep hygiene refers to the fact that like your lights are off, that you didn't look at your smartphone like 2 seconds before closing your eyes and declaring that, oh, now I'm sleeping. That the temperature in the room is right. Usually your temperature for sleep should be lower than the temperature during the day. Stuff like that, right? The reason why I like this bed, I would hate it if this bed just gave you data, but the fact that it actually corrects for stuff like temperature kind of is great. So
responding to sensor readings to find the optimal sleep conditions. So altogether, the Pod 4's tech is clinically validated to increase total sleep time by up to an hour every night, and increase deep sleep up to 2.5 hours a month, and reduce wake-up time by up to 3 hours per month. And it's just as comfortable as the last gen, so I kind of love it. So if you want to check out one for yourself, you can go to 8sleep.com/MKBHD and get $350 off a Pod 4 Ultra.
You know this thing is expensive when the offer is $350 off. Like, what is it? Like 2,500 or something like that?
Or $200 off a Pod 4. And with that money, you can get a whole smart ring, actually. But anyway, my point is, if I am taking my ring off for my most important workout activities, then this is not a great activity tracker for me, clearly. And even for my lighter workouts, turned out the wrist thing that I have on that has a screen on it, even though it's not the optimal place and it's not the optimal form factor to wear 24/7, I can tell it when I'm starting a workout and I can actually have it track.
And also like the convenience of having extra buttons, right? Like the action button for me, I just mapped it to the workout app. I have like 3 standard workouts I do every other day. It's easy to scroll through them. The screen is big enough. I see everything. In fact, I see like several things, so I wouldn't even have to swipe a lot or scroll a lot. And the fact that this is either reliant on like manually starting something from your phone, or of course automatic workout detection, which to me is like, I do like a lot of elliptical workouts, and I run outdoors, and I do like high intensity interval training, like especially between elliptical and like running. I wouldn't even know how it would tell the difference or something like that. Or even if you do like a stair stepper, like I just don't know. Would it be able to really understand the difference between that and just like a regular running workout?
Specific sets of time where I'm using it for a workout that I needed to know everything about. So the ring, I like the idea of it, but it's just not for me, which is really too bad because I love the idea of it not distracting me with notifications. It never vibrates. It never makes any noise.
One thing where I believe this kind of accessory would actually be pretty cool is it's unfortunate something that never fully took off. It's one of those fitness gadgets that actually like share data directly with like your watch. Like basically like you put the watch on there, and the watch gave like data for like your own health stuff, and the actual gadget gave it like data such as elevation, speed, and sometimes even health data that of course some devices have. They have like heart rate sensors that you can like touch with your thumb, and it transmits the data too, which I always just used for like fun comparisons to the data given to me by my watch. Unfortunately, the new gym that I go to doesn't have those kind of gadgets, but my old one did. And it was fun, and it actually takes off a load from your watch, so technically you can have like better battery life or something like that. So I assume that this would be cool because it could have like very accurate like heart rate levels, maybe even like oxygen levels, but then the actual device gives it like data on stuff like speed and elevation.
No speaker in it. It's just this 24/7 ultra minimal smart wearable.
Yeah, it's limited. Unfortunately, it's limited. And I don't know, like one thing that I wanted to say about miniaturizing technology, fundamentally, you can miniaturize technology as much as you want, but the smartwatch will still be like 8 times larger than this. So even if like the miniaturization level in here is like crazy 4 times higher than in a smartwatch, right? You don't need a screen, you don't need like band attachment mechanisms, you maybe pull off an even smaller processor for this or something like that. That still leaves your smartwatch with a lot more for your battery, more sensors, better sensors. So yeah, ultimately a watch will still be better.
With a stripped down feature set that you can wear for a week at a time. Like, that's a sick idea. And Samsung's made this nice little case for theirs that charges the ring inductively from the inside and has these clever little LEDs to indicate how much battery is left in the case and in the ring. So it can charge the ring up to 1.5 more times with its own built-in battery. So it's not meant to replace a smartwatch. It's just a different offering of a product into the same ecosystem.
I agree.
But that conveniently brings me to my last point, which is they've leaned heavy into the ecosystem thing with the Galaxy Ring. So there are some specific Samsung only features where like you can dismiss an alarm or take a picture with a gesture with your Samsung phone, which is hilarious.
The fun thing is that it sounds like a gimmick, but it's only a gimmick because it's still limited, right? If you actually had a lot of control over your smartphone, right, your for example, your music playback, your notifications. If you could actually see a full-on camera preview, so you could put like your smartphone somewhere else and then like just see on the watch a preview, click on shoot, like 3-second delay, right? You see what I'm getting at, right? It's all better done on a smartwatch. It's the same discussion that we had with those AI devices, where it's all of it, including the AI features, is still better on a smartphone.
Yes, I don't think anyone's going to do that very often, but it also only works with a Samsung Galaxy phone.
Yeah.
That's according to Samsung on their site. So the Galaxy Ring can only be paired to
I
a
feel like
Galaxy.
this happens a lot when companies introduce like something brand new and they really go out of their way to try to make a pitch similar to Apple's ecosystem. And then they forget that nothing they did is so special that it wouldn't be able to work in an Android app anyway. So I kind of assume that Samsung will probably port like all the Galaxy Health app that connects to the Galaxy Watch thing like to Android, to like the Google Play Store in general. But it just feels right now they either didn't bother to because they wanted to see if this could like help strengthen the ecosystem, or more likely I think they don't believe that this will be successful enough outside of Samsung buyers, that this doesn't make sense to invest like the extra manpower to develop such an app for other systems.
Phone, not any Android phone, just a Samsung phone. So I happen to be using a Samsung phone right now, and that's fine, and I can test it. But if I was using a Pixel or something else, I don't see what would stop me from just picking up an Aura Ring or an Ultra Human Ring or any of those others, which basically have the same feature set.
Yeah, this is part of it, right? That there is nothing special here. It's basically Samsung cloning the design for the most part, the basic health features. Granted, those are not new in the Aura Ring either, but like Samsung has done nothing innovative here. I guess that those like ecosystem features, like taking a picture or something, could be the main selling point. And in theory, I would say that the lack of a need for a subscription service kind of is. The issue is if you have a ring that is so inaccurate potentially when it comes to health tracking, and it's a ring, so you might not even want to carry it always, like put it on during some workouts and stuff like that. What value do you really get from like a health fitness subscription service based on that, right? Just buy a freaking $280 Apple Watch SE, or is it 250 even? I'm sure that like with discounts you can get it for like 220 or something like that, and use it and get better everything across the board. So that's just a shame to me, at least like really, in my opinion. I know some people might disagree, but like I don't get the price of this product whatsoever. I think it's this priced this way because other smart rings are priced this way, and I think other smart rings are priced this way because, well, those companies are way smaller. They have way less resources for research and development. They have to, like, for them, it's a bigger risk to invest into, like, the logistics of production, marketing, sell-through. For Samsung, all of this is a low risk. And they said that to themselves, well, we can basically use that advantage and not charge for a subscription service. But then they still charged a full $400. If this was undercutting at least the Aura Ring by like being $299, I could maybe see it. But $399 with granted without the subscription service, but with all those shortcomings, I don't know.
With
the only thing that I'm missing from this video would be like a comparison in terms of accuracy between the Galaxy Ring and like the Ultra, the Ultra Human Ring, the Aura Ring. Yeah, I would love to see how it compares to that, because it definitely seems to compare somewhat poorly to smartwatches.
Android phone. other than this one not having a subscription, which actually is pretty sick. So at the end of the day, this ring
Pretty
is
sick is a high compliment in my opinion.
for people who already have a Samsung phone and who prefer the wearability of a ring over the functionality of something like a smartwatch. Because a smartwatch clearly is more functional, but less wearable. So this thing is all about the simplicity. Which is probably a good time to mention the one feature that I wish the ring did have, which is either
To rule over all of Middle Earth and all the other ring bearers.
like some sort of tiny speaker or maybe some ultra wideband antenna or something like that. Something to make it easier to find if you lose it.
Yeah, that was the one thing that I was genuinely, well, it's kind of like I'm not surprised because it's such a small product, but I'm kind of shocked because it's such a needed thing that it doesn't have like more advanced Find My capabilities. I wonder, like, just based on Bluetooth, if Samsung can pull at least partially off what Apple did with like the Apple TV remote, where it's surprisingly accurate and like to the meter in finding it. But of course, nothing can replace like what you can do with ultra wideband and to a degree NFC, but NFC doesn't work on like larger distances.
If you do lose it, well, this is really hard to find.
Yep.
There's a Find My function in the app, which I can tell you gives you the rough GPS location based on the last spot that it was connected to your phone. And it can light up the LEDs on the inside that it uses to measure heart rate. So if it's really dark, maybe.
So this is basically for you finding it from when it like drops. Maybe you picked it out of the case early in the morning. It dropped below your bed. You're looking under the bed. You cannot see it. Maybe you have like the black version, and that's what this is for. It won't help you for anything else.
You'll see it visually. But if it's not out somewhere invisible, like if it's in a pocket or underneath something or out of sight, then yeah, you've got about as good a chance of finding this as a regular ring, which, is what did actually end up happening to me. The other smaller ring that I was wearing before I got this one resized, at some point it fell off my wrist or hand, and I just never found it. So yeah, Samsung, if you're watching this, sorry about that. Hopefully I do find it at some point and I can ship it back to you, but that's...
I wanted to say ship it then to me, but I don't have Samsung, like a modern Samsung smartphone in my hands, unfortunately, to test any of it. Nor would I really want to like test a smart ring. I just don't see much of a purpose in this. With the AI devices, I at least saw the fun. With this, it's just like, oh, it's an extra accessory for me to wear. Delivers basically nothing that my smartwatch was already doing. And it's bound to like completely to the Samsung ecosystem. So yeah, no thanks for the most part, but thanks to Marquez for a pretty good review. We also have like reviews for like the Galaxy Fold and the Flip, but not, I believe, from everyone. And then, like, it seems like the largest reviewers are kind of skipping those devices. So I'll wait until Sunday to see if there is new stuff to talk about in general. And maybe then we can react to those kinds of reviews together. But that's neither here nor there. This was a somewhat quick one, like below an hour and 15 minutes. Please, if you're watching this either live or if you've already watched this after the video has been uploaded, please consider subscribing, liking the video, sharing it out, commenting on the video, of course, helps a lot as well. If you catch me live, consider leaving a super chat or a super sticker as a small direct donation. And if you want to support this channel directly in the long term, you can become a channel member here on YouTube or support me on Patreon. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope your PCs are not in blue screen mode, and I hope that by now most pro things are also getting fixed. But of course, please let me know how you're faring with that CrowdStrike thing. Not CloudStrike, I apologize for that. Let me know what you think of the Galaxy Ring. And of course, as always, let me know what you would like to see me cover next. Thank you again so much for tuning in. See you guys next time. This is Mark Tech, tuning out.